meeting will be Wednesday. We good? All right, awesome. Next business meeting is Wednesday, January 28th, 2026 at 12 p.m. noon. 111 North Front Street, second floor, room 205, which I believe is next door. Our next hearing will be Wednesday, February 11th, 2026 at 4 p.m. 111 North Front Street, second floor, room 204. Swear in staff. State your name, please.
Yes, Jacqueline Mizell.
You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, great.
Thank
Next, introduction of commissioners present. We'll start them.
Kevin Parzak.
Reed Sprite.
Tim Skinner.
Zach Romer Jordan.
Great. Do we have any overview of hearing format for this evening?
Sure. So we will go, we'll have a vote for the staff approvals as well as the minutes. And then we'll go into applications. So I think Victorian will call out the application number, staff will give the staff report, then we'll have the applicant come up. We'll swear anyone in who is speaking on behalf of the application, and then we'll start the dialogue between the applicant and the commission.
Okay, great. Any public forum today?
No public forum.
With that, we can move to staff approvals. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve staff approvals.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And then we'll run through the list for any abstentions.
All right, so the list includes 249 West 2nd Avenue, 47 West 3rd Avenue, 661 Denison Avenue, 326 West Avenue, and that is it.
Abstain from 47 West 3rd.
Thank you.
Okay. Move on to approval of meetings from the last meeting. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the minutes from December as submitted.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. And we can move on to applications.
All right, our first application is 100 West 4th Avenue, so that's COA 2501293B. I'll get the materials up here. Okay, so this application was continued from the December 2025 VVC hearing. The proposal, the chimney proposal portion, it still remains the same. So that is to remove the chimney on the 1925 building and install a metal cap, and that work has been completed. The lower level window lintel replacement and doored threshold of the original 1925 building work has also been completed. There is an update to the proposed tuck pointing, and that includes the minor masonry concrete patching and cleaning. So the proposal now includes to tint the new mortar to better match that original mortar or the surrounding brick. So to recap, an application was conceptually reviewed at the May 2025 Victorian Village Commission hearing. The commission noted at the May hearing that they believed the chimney was likely historic. Unapproved work has since taken place, including the partial demolition of the chimney without a COA or building permit. The steel lintels were removed and reinstalled with new mortar without a COA, and so a code violation was issued in September. The applicant had submitted a letter in June, and staff was able to locate the letter and confirm that was uploaded to the closed out May conceptual application and notified the applicant that a new application was needed, and the work indicated to not receive a COA or building permit. An application was split into parts A and B at the December 2025 Victorian Village Commission hearing for clarity of review. Part A regarding doors was approved, and Part B was reviewed conceptually. So again, with the update, the applicant has submitted before photos indicating some later inappropriate mortar has been added, with the original mortar being a closer match to the brick color, and then their proposal update also reflects that, with the proposed to tint the existing mortar to better match that color. So jumping ahead, it is the conclusion of the City Historic Preservation Office that the chimney is a historic character defining feature based on the photo documentation that we have. and the partial demolition of the chimney and the mortar as currently existing that has been used for lintels does not meet Columbus City Code 3116.11 or the Victorian Village Guidelines. So in accordance with the city code standards for alteration and the guidelines, city staff recommends that the historic chimney be rebuilt to match the prior historic height and design. The commission may also discuss other remedies to the removal or alteration based on that same city code. The recommendation, so staff recommends continuing application COA 2501293B at 100 West 4th Avenue to allow the applicant time to revise the proposal to meet city code and Victorian Village guidelines, or recommend denial of application COA 2501293B based on the city code 3116.11 standards for alteration, the city code 3116.14 standards for demolition, and the Victorian Village guidelines. And with that, I'll turn it over to the commission.
If the applicants want to step forward here. State your name for the record, please.
Melinda Shaw.
Kurt Keaton. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, great. Turn it over to you if there's anything you would like to add.
Yeah, so starting with the mortar, because that's the little easier one. The proposal and it's not really tinting the mortar, it's applying a stain to the mortar that is breathable, and it's not all the mortar, it's just the mortar at the lintels that was replaced that doesn't match. The stain would be breathable, it would change the mortar to the color to match the rest of the mortar more closely. And using the stain versus grinding out the joints and replacing them, one will protect the bricks from any possible damage from grinding and chiseling out mortar. Plus, it will allow the work to happen much sooner. As you can imagine, it's a lot quieter to go in with a paintbrush, something you could do while school is in session versus any grinding and mortar replacement would have to wait till summer. It can't be done during the school year. So that's the background for that one. The district still maintains for the chimney that it is a financial hardship to rebuild it, and even to have rebuilt part of it due to the large crack because it could not stay and had to come down before the school started in the fall. So, and that's what the letters that were submitted state from the structural engineer, that it was not safe to remain with students in the building.
Okay. All right, great, thanks. Turn it over to the commission for commentary. Maybe we start with the mortar.
So I went over to take a look because I wanted to just kind of get eyes on it. I think it's kind of a combination of two things, right? It was like it's not the cleanest job ever, right? And it's like, I think you wouldn't notice it was a different color if it was a cleaner job. So I think this will probably fix the problem. I don't know. That's the best I can come to. I'm not, to your point, I'm not going to go make someone go grind out all these things and start over, but it was kind of a sloppy job is my take on it for anyone who hasn't been over there to see it. So.
Well, I mean, I think the new material in the application is trying to clarify that there are multiple colors of mortar in different areas of this building. And I found that the submitted sort of diagrams and documentation better told that story. And from my perspective, it's a very unique building in that for the neighborhood, that there would be multiple very detailed changes in mortar color as you go around a structure. So I think just, considering the proposed mortar tint in this very unique building and a very unique mortar design, for lack of a better term, plus the point, I do appreciate the point that was raised about further damage to any brick. I mean, the brick itself is historic in nature. This seems to be a very gentle application that would help preserve as much of the existing sort of brick detailing at these areas as it could. So it seems the way some of this documentation was submitted and the staff report that we may want to consider a sort of part B and part C almost to this application. And I don't know if that would be something the applicant's in favor of, but
That's fine.
That would
We figured much the same thing.
help to make progress, I think. Do we want to stay on mortar? Because I'm happy.
Yeah, let's stay if
Okay.
there's any more commentary there.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is I appreciate the package you put together. I think it clearly showed where the work was and the different conditions. So I appreciate it. I agree. I think this is a non-intrusive way to remedy it.
And maybe off of your comment of the quality of the work, I guess that'd be obviously, I think we're all in agreement on less intervention at this point. I guess that would be the only question is if there's any bit that can be done to kind of help
Clean it up.
with the application to help, clean up where possible. Just to-
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we can talk about, once the tint comes in, having them do a mock-up before they just
Okay.
go and do all of it. So we'll go out and approve it and
Okay.
so,
Yeah.
because I don't think a mock-up was done before. I was
And
not
there-
the architect
there
for
was
that part, so.
Okay. We'll save kind of the motion to the end, but I
Sure.
agree that this seems like a good candidate for splitting this into multiple to keep you moving forward and keep us in line with our expectations. With that, do we want to move on to the chimney? Kind of any additional commentary based on what's been submitted? It seems like, no change there other than that path forward of hardship, which obviously is not our purview. So I guess it might be a quick commentary, but if there's any new thinking of that condition.
Yeah, I just did want to put a point on it since I was pretty hard on everybody last time about it. I think one thing I did want to be clear about, I mean, it was done without a building permit and without permission, and there are ways to shore up chimneys and things like that. And so, I don't want to excuse that it was taken down without any permission of any kind, right? So that still is kind of hanging out there,
I
but
will say the school districts learned their lesson because they have another chimney project coming up that we've already talked about.
right, and then there you go, right?
Be a good
So-
lesson learned.
Yes.
Because I think I had said something along the lines of like, yeah, I get it, you made the decision in the moment, but
Yeah.
you can't make that decision by yourself in that moment.
I will say they have learned their lessons.
Yeah. But I also recognize there's probably not going to be a chimney rebuilt here. So, but I'm not going to be the one to excuse that. So, I think, I think if you use the word financial hardship, the magic words, staff recommended denial as a possible option. I'm thinking that's probably the path we go down here. If you're authorized to,
We've talked about it.
okay.
So.
And I think, yes, we're willing to kind of work together on what is that best path forward. Again, I mean, we'll get some additional commentary, but if we are leaning towards that based on what we're held to with
Yeah.
guidelines of not approving what's been done just for the tone that's setting, that kind of gives you what you need to move forward appropriately.
One thought I had, in other applications that I'm familiar with that have come to this commission, requesting demolition of historic materials that are in poor condition. There is a thought to not wanting to promote demolition by means of neglect, right? I think that there's probably a, train of thought here that perhaps this building, perhaps the school hasn't been taken care of very well over the years, and that this crack developed over a long series of time. I also don't think I think it's important to note for the record that this is a historic structure in and of itself, given its age, given that this is a historic preservation commission in a historic neighborhood in the city. I recognize that the school district may have plans in the future, or things might evolve over the course of time on this property. And the submitted materials do talk about these are various building additions over the years. The original building is not still there, but it's still historic in nature. And I would want to put that forward here just as we're talking about this property, so that if there are other elements in the future that are proposed to be demolished, that the correct steps are followed, that this building is seen not just as a school, but as a piece of architecture that's in a historic neighborhood and that has historic value, certainly contributing value. So I'm in favor of, maintaining the standards as they are written for this property, regardless of the school district's situation at this time as we know it, and other, unique situations such as the start of a school year, et cetera. So certainly I'm in favor of a vote if we do want to go down that path of a denial. So.
And I think it's an important qualifier to the recognition that while this chimney is not original, it still has been there long enough that it is contributing.
It's contributing in a historic in nature.
Own right. Okay. Any other comments?
No.
Okay. Before we go to, well, I think we can vote on item A first before we make the vote.
And do we want to call it item B?
Well, it's B.
Because we have a.
Oh, so B and C.
have an
Yeah,
A
we already had an
already,
A.
right.
That's our sequence.
Yeah, that's right. That was the door section that was moved to approval at last hearing.
Okay. Before we get to item C, kind of pause for a moment if there's any housekeeping items to kind of run through of that scenario.
I would just say, if the commission, when they go to vote, of course, we do all the voting in the affirmative. If there is a denial, I just want to make sure that the reasons from city code and guidelines are listed out. And then I know the hardship has been mentioned. So if the applicant, let's say, comes back and submits an application for hardship, we'll give those materials that are required as part of the denial packet. And then they could potentially come back to the commission if it's an economic hardship appeal.
Good on kind of that next steps of the process.
Yeah,
Okay.
you'll
great.
send, if we request it, you'll send all the information.
Yeah, so whenever we have a denial, part of our denial packet includes that information, and I believe includes the same language of the city code for what that entails, what kind of materials would be required as part of that packet.
Okay. Any other commentary? Okay. Do I have a motion for item B?
Go ahead.
Sure. So, have we split these? No, we will vote on item B and it will be conditioned on, for mortar work only.
Right.
Correct. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So move to approve COA 2501-293 item B for 100 West 4th Avenue, conditioned upon work being limited to the mortar modifications to match the original colors as submitted.
And maybe also the qualifier on a little bit of cleanup work as
Correct, and conditioned upon cleaning up the mortar work as needed to remedy the previous work without approval.
do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So that motion passes. And then if I can have a motion for item C, and the motion will be in the affirmative.
So move to deny.
No, we actually moved to approve.
Move to approve, okay.
Then we
So move to approve COA 2501-293 C for 100 West 4th Avenue to approve the demolition of the chimney.
all those in favor?
Us, we got a second first.
Second, sorry. Thank you.
So second.
We have a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Aye.
Aye.
So the motion is denied. And so on to, so we've discussed.
And then does the commission, can you list out the reasons for denial with the code or guidelines?
Yes. Reasons for denial would be city code item 3116.1, standards for alteration items 2, 4, 5, 6, and 12.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Guys.
Okay, and then we'll follow up with the COA as well as the denial for the parts B and C.
Thank you.
All right, our next applicant for 721 North High Street. Is that the, okay. Go jump into this. Okay, this application for 721 North High Street, it was previously reviewed conceptually at the December 2025 VVC hearing. The proposal is to construct a pergola along the north elevation of the Forno Restaurant building per the submitted documentation. And just to clarify, as the commission requested elevation and wall section drawings and then feedback from the Department of Public Service, staff has placed the application as currently proposed for conceptual review. The applicant has submitted some additional renderings as well as a letter. Let's see if I scroll down here. And then, so just to add some additional information, staff has reached out to Public Service and they let us know they're going to look into the 904 lease. Public Service mentioned that it sounds like there might be a 904 lease renewal. So any info, they'll let us know. What a 904 lease is, it regulates placement of non-permanent items in the public sidewalk. And so they'll hopefully get back to us with that information. Since this is a conceptual application, the recommendation is that the commission offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine proposal for review at a future meeting. The basis for the staff recommendation is the City Code 3116.11 standards for alteration, specifically numbers 1, 5, 9, 10, and 12, and the Short North Design Guidelines regarding awnings and canopies, commercial patios and outdoor dinings, and the Victorian Village Guidelines regarding awnings and canopies. Thank you.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Nick Fioca.
Spencer Holt. Okay, you raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, great. I will turn it over to you for any additional comments.
No, we've obviously it's our third hurrah here. So just based on the last feedback, we've tried to minimize obviously the columns and to make it as I guess less intrusive, which came to be what we gathered from prior meetings. So the last renderings that we had were more so from what we interpreted from, I would say, the first meeting, which what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for?
I'm trying to almost mimic
the
existing crown molding there.
the existing moldings up there and the paneling that's going on. Obviously it's up to, obviously you guys, obviously to approve the conceptual aspect of it. Obviously if eventually our take is if it gets shot down by, the building department in terms of actual tie-in points and things like that, then, that's the last hurrah. But, in terms of conceptual, I think we're looking for an approval or denial.
Okay, thank you. Before I turn it over to the rest of the commission, I had a question for staff. And I don't know if this was there previous that I missed, the 1978 photo. Is that a new addition?
Yeah, so that's something staff located from the Columbus Library.
Okay, that's the High Street facing.
Yes, it is. So it's just showing before the transom windows were kind of covered over.
Okay.
It gives you a good idea of, what that feature is.
Okay. With that, turn it over to the commission.
Well, I guess I have also a clarification here. This is a conceptual application. Am I understanding that right? So we're mostly providing feedback. This is not an application for action at this point.
Yes, so staff has placed this application for conceptual review just because, or based on the commission's feedback of what they had requested previously.
So, okay. We'd asked for certain detailed drawings, and those have not been.
Right,
submitted, so
yeah, I
that's
think
why
it-
this is still in a concept phase.
Well, I mean, we've provided quite a few drawings. They just were in still conceptual mode feedback. So I don't know. I mean, I agree with you, but I also disagree with you in a sense, respectfully.
Sure.
Because, like, again, we spent, probably a month or two just going based off of the first meeting, which the first initial feedback was, the advice that, well, we didn't want to cover up the historical elements of the building. So that's when we then came up with the conceptual drawings that where the pergola awning itself with the facade and the fascia of it and everything basically resembled and in basically just brought those elements out further from the building. But so to appease both parties and keep those historical elements being like the board and batten paneling and the crown moldings and all that kind of stuff, which we can render and make part of the new thing. And then after that last meeting, then it was determined that, well, no, we want to keep it as minimal as possible because that last rendering that included all of that stuff, that brought all that stuff to life, was, deemed to be too robust. And so we scaled it down as much as possible and we got it either below that threshold, so just to the top of the glass, or we can go up above the crown. It's in the eye of the beholder, obviously, and what the final approval is as far as which one looks better, assuming that, we can get a contingent approval.
Sure. Well, I'm glad to have the options, and I think it's certainly gotten close to where this is really a productive conversation. But I guess I just want to make sure that you guys are clear when we talk about wall sections and building elevations, that those are two-dimensional drawings showing, exactly where the horizontal element of the new canopy is going to be in relation to the existing building and sort of drawn orthographically, right? I mean, we have some 3D renderings in here, which are very helpful, but those renderings also are not as precise as a two-dimensional element. So is that understood from your perspective that it's, staff has said those elements need to be submitted in order for an approval to be voted on, and we don't have those in front of us here. So that's regardless of the design, the aesthetics of it. We've asked for just some documents, a type of drawing that I'm imagining your team can pull together. I just want to make sure our feedback is clear and the requests from staff are clear so that the next time you guys are coming for us expecting this is the last time we're here, that you've actually checked the boxes. So hopefully that is making sense, and let me know if it's unclear.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on all other than semi to the point that, originally we had it as attached to the building. We've obviously determined by experience and trial and error that we don't want to attach it to the building for the best odds of getting it approved. Do I think personally that's the best application for everybody? No, but obviously my opinion doesn't matter.
Okay.
I guess it would, I guess if you zoom in, it being detached from the building, I mean, it's going to be no different than the existing railings that are currently there in place, and as far as how they interact with the surrounding areas, how they interact with the existing building, where they connect or don't connect to the existing building, where they connect or don't connect to the existing concrete. All of those things obviously will come to a head once it goes to building and zoning and for actual permit review. But as far as I guess really what we're looking for to determine if we're, still on a path of, 4 months down this road of, are we contingently approved minus this minor detail of a wall section of like, well, is it, you know, an inch away from the building? Is it, you know, an air gap? Is it, you know, those types of things? I mean, I hear what you're saying, but you can pretty much see on that, the vertical wall section, or as far as the view of where it comes into play and how the building is and where the concrete elements come into play. And how basically where the footprint of the existing patio currently is, because we're not changing that footprint.
Sure,
So,
sure. Okay, I guess as long as you guys are clear on deliverables, just checking the boxes and a list, then I think we can move on to design.
Well, we can, yeah, we can
And,
circle
Jacqueline,
back to that as we.
If you guys
kinda
want
get
to talk
through.
about that offline, but I'm hearing two different things. One, I'm asking about deliverables. You're talking more about design. And so it just needs to be sorted out.
We'll give you
eventually.
guidance. I think that will give you your answer that you're looking for, but it's not going to be an approval until we get the packet, just like the packet that you would need to give to public service. So,
Right.
because we can't approve something that's not a full packet, right? But we can give you guidance that's going to be able to give you what that packet's going to need to look like. I think is the final, or the salon.
So yeah, I mean, do we want to talk through these two options? I'm
Yes.
curious to hear what people think. I am feeling, you know, personally, when I look at this, you know, the lower option does expose the sort of turrets at the top of the storefront, which I think is a big benefit of this approach. I think there is a nice consistency between the sort of spandrel section of the storefront being in alignment, you know, that break between the clear glass and what now is sort of an opaque spandrel being aligned with the canopy is architecturally following a logic to me, as opposed to just slicing the spandrel in two. You know, there's functionality differences, of course, with it being lower.
That's,
But
yeah,
as I'm-
we'd prefer it lower. So
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but.
That's fine. As I'm seeing these two options presented, I am feeling that it is likely more appropriate to go with the lower design at this point. But I'm eager to hear if you guys are in agreement or if I am.
No, I
I'm
agree.
alone in this,
I think the tall option does not look right.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah,
and
I'm on board.
I think we've been consistent with that portion of this, the struggling with that being such an important feature of this historic structure, the spandrel, the finials on top of that, those are important things that many options up to this point have done something to compromise the appearance, the view of those. So I do agree that at least from that standpoint, that is more successful.
Well, one thing I wanted to make sure we look at is the length and where it cuts between the windows. And I'm actually kind of 50-50 on whether this is better or worse than cutting between the windows, because the benefit here is that this doesn't pretend to be part of the building. This is like, just like you would do board and batten against a brick house, right? Just to say this is something different, right? It doesn't try to keep with the rhythm of the windows.
And you're referring to the column placement?
Get the column placement, right? Like it's cutting right through the center of pane on either end, as opposed to trying to keep with the exact rhythm with the windows. You know, so it's looking like it's something that's just not part of the building, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't keep with the rhythm of the windows. So,
Well, and I think that speaks to like compatibility, right?
Right.
I think new alterations ought to be compatible with an existing structure, as something that the guidelines would say.
right.
I think that the columns, especially at the end, it's maybe just a trick of the perspective that they seem to line up better as you sort of move. I believe that's to the west on the building, but the easternmost column at the corner of the patio that's closest to the sort of viewer in this perspective drawing that's on the screen really ought to line up with the sort of limestone pier that separates the mason,
You think it's
the two storefront elements. Yeah. This window, this rendering, the little spirally plant would be in conflict with the sort of post that's closest to the building, but I think that's a simple rearrangement and ought to.
I mean,
ought to
if
just get
we
resolved.
could extend it down even further to go cover that other window there to the closest to High Street, I mean, we would totally approve of that. But because there is this sort of dead space where unfortunately there's a lot of, you know, I don't mean to be, there's a lot of, I'll call it there's just a lot of riffraff and trouble that just kind of congregates there at that corner. So, that would eliminate that, loitering zone, so to speak. So,
So
I think it needs to be symmetrical, I guess, is what I was gonna say, but go ahead, Tim.
well, if I was going to say, if we can go ahead to, I think it's page 14 or 15 in the package, and this was a previous iteration that the iteration itself wasn't quite there, but it does at least give us a better idea of that comparison of if these external columns are lined up with the column placement or rhythm of the original architecture, how that feels. And I think it's good that we have the comparison in that study. That's really important. That's very helpful to us. But understand trying to make that alignment versus not. I think great commentary of complementary. That I think this in of itself, by what it is, the material is going to feel different. But finding those right ways to make it compatible.
Yeah, I think the simplest way to say it is the 4 structural bays of this canopy should align with the 4 storefront bays of the building.
Okay.
And I think to the point of documentation that's going to be provided, in addition to elevations and wall sections, like a plan that shows us where this starts and stops in comparison to the openings and the piers and where those columns are located.
I agree.
So the perspective's extremely helpful. We're very grateful for those. Important to have this dialogue, make that decision. But this goes back to the initial commentary of, to get final approval, if we go that route, having that scaled, very clear drawings that show where these columns, where these posts hit in plan view, how that relates to the building fenestration, how it relates to the street. All those things that are very clear to scale exactly where they go, as opposed to the rendering views that are very good and pretty close, but there's a little bit of interpretation of.
Right. I guess what we were kind of picking up on the last meeting was, you guys weren't sold on the concept of what we were trying to do. I guess what we were trying to provide here is something that would pass your design criteria.
Exactly.
And then, then we can start getting into the brunt of specifics on location and, dimensions, stuff like that.
Logical.
Yeah, because we really haven't, explored, obviously. I mean, hopefully, or the goal would not be to make the patio any smaller than it currently is, but there is potential opportunity, if it were to be entertained and or approved, to make it even a little bit bigger, because there is a lot of room, a lot of dead space. If you can kind of see a little bit of it there, but there's more room than you can even see. It might be visible in some of the other older renderings, but nonetheless, either we got to shorten it and get it within that, that column of the masonry, or go to one more window, which would be expanding the existing footprint of the patio, which would be ideal because it's a relatively narrow patio as it currently is. There's really only enough room for, you'd be surprised. I mean, you guys might probably walk by there many a times. I don't need to explain it, but doesn't seat that many of people. So
I'm seeing 4 structural bays to this canopy in the image here. Jacqueline, if you could go to page 36 or 35, maybe. It's like an aerial view. Yeah. This seems to show maybe 6 bays as like an older concept that takes it all the way to the corner of the building.
So that may be a little bit of an older concept.
Right.
The lines in the middle there, those are actually fan beams, so it's not separating the actual bay itself. Basically what that is just a beam that runs across to support a fan.
I mean, I think the nice thing about the perspective image is that it doesn't go all the way to the corner of the building. And I guess I'm not super clear on how many structural bays there are or the storefront bays, so to speak, on this side of the building?
Yeah, do we have an elevation view? I mean, I know I don't know if the auditor, I have some, but.
4 total.
Oh, there are 4 total.
We
Okay.
did a streetscape
I think so.
view.
Or yeah, Google.
Looking at
Google
this,
Earth.
it's hard
Tough
to
to-
say
yeah,
whether it
it's a very-
continues. I mean, this is where they're proposing to stop it, is where this
You
comes
probably
out.
there we go.
So there
Right, where that.
there are 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's extended a little bit into as close to that.
You wouldn't want to bring it all the way out to the end.
I think
The entrance, it's as close to well, that next window.
I guess yeah, there's 4 total, and I guess there are like 5 piers as it is right now, right?
Yeah.
So to me, as I'm looking at this, I feel like the sort of like 4, I guess it's really a 3-bay canopy,
4 columns.
3 sets of storefront openings, and that last corner being, open to the street and kind of the original condition of the building.
Right.
To me, is more appropriate than bringing everything all the way out there.
Yeah.
So
So are you, sorry to interrupt, are you looking for like the bays to line up with the existing windows there? Just kind of follow that pattern? I got you. Okay.
the posts should be evenly aligned between the storefront openings.
So basically center your columns on the columns.
Right.
And I agree that, I mean, that was my gut feeling looking at this view that I think regardless of reality of the corner, that having it kind of step back kind of helps celebrate them as 2 different things. I think also functionally, if this were to extend all the way out, I'm concerned about the right of way pedestrian circulation around that corner getting pretty cramped. So I think there for 2 reasons there, it seems like that step back is appropriate.
Yeah, so I mean, would you agree that, so like centered between those 2 window bays there on the left, and then down either in that inside corner or centered along that column there closest to the next
First column line, centered.
centered there, yeah.
One is centered.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I think come a long way with initial concerns and goals of making sure we are continuing to celebrate and leave view of historically significant detail of this building. We've a lot of different iterations of the structure itself, come to something that's very kind of simple and elegant. Any other thoughts on?
I'm gonna
Zach-
throw one.
Zach, you're a little bit new to this one's been going on for a little while, the evolution. I think fresh eyes on what we have here.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate, I mean, my comments from last month were picked up of looking at, is it high, is it low? It sounds like we're all feeling like the low is more appropriate. It allows for some of those historic features to still be visible. I think it's more functional when it does that. I agree completely of base spacing and everything like that. One falling 2 feet beyond this would not work out so well. So yeah, I don't think I have anything else beyond.
The only thing I was going to say is, in terms of the height, bringing it down to the top aligns with the top of the spandrels, is that as opposed to the bottom aligning or aligning with the glass? I don't know if that might make a little bit more sense. So basically bringing it down whatever the height of I don't know, whatever, 6 to 8 inches, whatever that.
So it's an 8-inch beam. You're thinking
Yeah,
like
bringing
the
it
top,
down 8 inches.
the top of the window would match up line with the top of the pergola.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
I don't know what you guys think.
If that's an easy exploration, it might not hurt to, if you guys are flexible on A versus B, it might be helpful to see. I think it's probably okay, once we get that, the horizontal alignment where it needs to be, the vertical, I think I could probably go either way.
It's not a deal breaker, for sure.
Yeah, I think that'll be fine. Yeah, I mean, we'll confirm what that, height, like essentially the ceiling height would be for as a pedestrian underneath it, where that would fall, but
That way you're just not blocking the spandrel at all.
Well, and I think this will be more telling in the 2D elevation. You know, granted, that's not the way we're perceiving it, but I think when you see that datum line that is consistent there might be more appropriate. But I don't think it's a deal breaker either.
If you guys had a preference on one, that way it does take a little bit of time and resources to get the 2D drawings and then everything looked over by an engineer. So I mean, if you guys had a preference on which one you prefer, we can include those drawings on the next submission.
I think the preference is at this point, if we're going underneath, the little bit lower gives you a little bit more visibility to the elements to the top. It can't just be somewhere in the middle, so that it needs to align to something. So top align to the top of the window makes sense to me.
yeah,
I think so too.
my only, and again, maybe overthinking it, but in terms of historical, and there's also, in my opinion, obviously historic versus, some stretch of that with the times and moving forward and things that, are evolving. So, with that said, if there were an awning there, which would be considered to be, in my opinion, historic and or common for an application like that. And even if like reference back to that historic picture from 1972 or whatever, but that open panel up there minus the crown and the spandrel would be all covered up from an awning, like a cloth awning that would come down, and underneath that would be so essentially the bottom of that is where the awning would come out, is what I'm just referencing. And you might have some like ruffles or, some on the bottom of that awning that might come down even a little bit lower than the top of that glass. So, it's hard to say. We can, but like I think, and for our sake, us lowering it makes it more functional for us.
Right.
So as long as it's not too low, but luckily, there's a lot of height there. I think to the top of that glass is like
About 10 feet, I
I
think.
think it's at least 10 feet. So
At least 10 feet.
So yeah, I think good commentary there, and I think that's why we kind of feel like it could possibly go either way, but maybe feeling like it might be based on criteria that we've set here, maybe more appropriate.
well, in the lower, if we put the top of it down to the top of the glass, then that would even allow more, I guess, natural light into the building. Obviously one of our main goals, and the reason for the benefit of this system and what it is the fact that it still allows light into the building rather than putting a fixed structure and or an awning even, which cuts off the natural light coming into a building dramatically. So that's the downside to an awning. That's the downside to a fixed roof structure. So this kind of gives us the best of both worlds.
Okay.
So I guess to directly answer your question, bring it down the 8 inches, and I think that'll be I think that's the way to go.
Okay.
Any other comments? So I guess kind of turn this back around. Do you guys feel like, let us know if there's more that we need to advise on what would be needed for the official submission that we would vote on. So obviously, I think we mentioned the 2D drawings that both elevation as well as plan view that are very specific. Understanding in section view, we were not connecting to the building, but just understanding what that relationship is in addition to the details of the structure that you have provided.
Yeah, and I would emphasize show as much of the existing building as you can in those views.
Okay. And now I do have a question about the Department of Transportation, or Public Service. Is there anything we need to get with them about? I did speak to a technician, like I said in the letter, and he wasn't quite sure on what the commission was asking for specifically. Is there anything we need to do with them moving forward here.
Well, they might not approve your application, but it'd be nice to know if they're in favor of what you're proposing.
Right.
at all.
I guess you guys were just looking for like feasibility, like would it be something they would possibly approve of was your main
Yeah, I mean,
concern.
we brought it up because of the fact that this is going to be freestanding
Mhm.
with significant foundations in the right of way,
Mhm.
that we're going through all of this. And if they say no, this could be a moot point if they don't agree to it.
Understood.
So
Yeah.
that was what we were hoping for you guys to get feedback on, was that they were even in favor of this at all.
Yeah. The technician basically says, well,
Right.
we can't give feedback
Yeah,
until
they see the
And,
drawing.
and I will say.
Yeah, I think at this point, like, I don't know if we're gonna get what we would need or want from them. So for the sake of, process and time already invested in what we were tasked to do, and I know what you guys are tasked to do, if once we get all of the visual representations that we need, we're gonna, by all means, we'll try to call whoever we can call to get hey, no, we're not gonna allow you to, tie into the concrete or whatever. But I don't really want them to be tied together. And, I guess if we
I
get.
mean, it sounds like it'll be a parallel process. at this
If we,
point.
yeah, I mean, if we get the approval from you guys, that's the next step. We're gonna have to send it to them, submit it to them, and then, yeah, we know that they might shoot it down, but at least, we'll have won one of two battles.
Yeah, and I guess from my perspective, the reason I'm so interested in the feedback from the department is our guidelines, the Short North guidelines state that at right of ways, permanent structures are typically not appropriate.
Right.
So we just have to balance that with the, design that's submitted, recognizing that this is a sort of already used in, a sort of occupation of the right of way that's unique to this neighborhood and this building and et cetera. So if we hear that, yes, this is something that the other departments of the city are encouraging or in favor of or think is feasible, it at least helps us understand how to balance somewhat conflicting portions of the guidelines.
Well, and I think from our purview that we can treat this as a temporary structure because, once it's secure anchored, I mean, you can
Take it
you
apart.
can remove it and no harm, no foul to the historic structure.
Correct.
From public
Correct.
services standpoint, foundations, they are not going to probably view it the same way. So I think that ask
They would
was-
say attach it to the building.
that ask was for your benefit of not going down a path that is not achievable from both entities.
Understood.
Yeah.
So if that gives you what you need, I think we can, we're no vote this evening. It was just our commentary. Appreciate, I know this has been a process, rightfully so, very important structure, attributing feature and business to the community, to the neighborhood. So making sure we're all getting it right and we doing it the right way.
Yeah, I mean, I think after each meeting, we've, come out of it with more information than previous, whether it was ultimately sent us in a direction that, maybe we didn't or misperceived misinterpreted what was, a unanimous, because again, obviously at first it was probably a surprise and everybody was getting acclimated with it. So, I mean, that's why every meeting we've come and made progress, but yeah, I think we have our final marching orders. So,
Okay, great. All right.
Right.
I think it's pretty clear.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
have a good evening.
All right, and our next application is going to be 122 Bettles Avenue. So this application is conceptual. The proposal includes demolition of a side porch and rusticated block foundation, first floor side entry door, second floor window, and then installing brick for elevator access locations, and a portion of the cornice. The proposal also includes construction of an 80 square foot addition to add an elevator. The addition would include a new gable porch with decorative gabled entablature, grade level rear entry, 2-story elevator shaft, and half-round gutters. The addition materials would include brick veneer, split face concrete block foundation, pine wood trim boards, asphalt shingle roof in slate gray, Pella Reserve traditional double hung window, and a 4-panel door. There's also a landscaping hardscaping component, and that includes a new brick paver patio at the rear. So, let me switch over to my staff report here. Okay, so this property includes a 2.5-story brick Queen Anne residence built around in 1895, at least according to Columbus Dispatch newspaper reports. And then there's a circa 1990s wood frame carriage house that's sheathed with brick walls and a mansard roof. The 2nd-story front porch was constructed sometime between 1901 and 1921. A side porch appears on the 1901 and later Sanborn maps, so it's a bit earlier. And this is consistent with the location and footprint of the existing side porch. The turn post porch style is consistent with the construction era and style of the home. Regarding accessibility, the National Park Service recommends a 3-step approach in identifying and implementing accessibility modifications while protecting the integrity and character of a historic property. And that is to review the historical significance of the property and identify its character-defining features, to assess the property's existing and required level of accessibility, and to evaluate accessibility options within the preservation of the character-defining features in mind. Since this is a conceptual application, the recommendation is the commissioners offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine proposal for review at future meetings, so no action is required. The basis for the staff recommendation is the City Code 3116.11 standards for alteration, specifically numbers 2, 4, 5, 10, and 12, and then the City Code 3116.12 standards for new construction, the City Code 3116.14 standards for demolition, and then the Victorian Village guidelines regarding new construction. And with that, I'll turn over to the commission. Thank you.
You can state your name for the record, please.
Thaddeus Jones.
Okay. You swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, turn it over to you if you want to add anything to the commentary.
I think that was pretty much covered pretty well there in that summary, but I read through the staff report. It seems like there might be some concerns with the location of the addition and the replacement of the existing porch. So I just want to kind of allow you to understand that, you know, this was the reason we put it there was, you know, for accessibility mobility issue concerns to get it to grade level for an elevator to be accessed from grade level. And that was kind of one of our only areas around the residence that we could actually easily get to it for that reason. So that's really all I wanted to add there.
Okay. We'll turn it over to the commission for feedback.
I guess it's unique, I would say, for single family residences to have elevators, especially ones that are added to historic structures. So the National Parks guidance that was kind of cited in the staff report, the, you know, requirement of accessibility, I'm not here to be an architect at the moment, is it's sort of an elective thing. Granted, the person who wants this elevator installed at their home. And are you the homeowner or designer?
I'm not.
Okay. So you're working for them.
Mhm.
I imagine they are pretty motivated to do it because this is not insignificant construction cost and probably lets them stay in their home for longer. And so it sort of seems like a goal of the homeowner to make
That's exactly right.
their residents more accessible and they can live there
Yep.
for longer as a result.
Mhm.
And, you know, almost all of the houses in Victorian Village probably have this challenge eventually. So while it's unique, it's not maybe something that is unique to this property, I guess. The staff report did point out sort of the historic significance of the back porch and a lot of the defining characteristics of the very early 20th century construction being present. So I think that is something for us to kind of tackle and think about Could you maybe speak to why it's sort of its feasibility in terms of location from your perspective or suitability as opposed to other areas of the building?
One of the things, I think this actually is, the location is the least amount of impact to the historic details of the building. Even though we're removing the porch, it doesn't really affect the rest of the house in that manner. So that was kind of one of the driving forces to pick that location. We can utilize the existing door and the existing window openings. And ideally, we would probably just maintain the existing eave details and just build over top of those. That way, if it came to the point where they would remove it, they would still be present.
And also I was thinking about, the challenge of removing the whole porch. Obviously it doesn't work to keep some of the porch because there are steps that go up to get you to a point where you'd be entering the elevator from grade, right? So sort of a preservation of the porch. The big challenge for accessibility is the fact that the porch is raised anyways. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I studied this for quite a bit because there's actually been, on my street, there's been 2 residential elevators.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, gone in. And we've been pondering one for our own if we do a big reno. So it is, I think, probably going to be more of a thing that we'll come across. Those were 3-story, so this one it's only 2-story, which makes it a much less of a problem, frankly, because you don't have the big thing sticking out of the roof. And I think you've done a nice job at how you dealt with the roof line. So appreciate that. The porch is what the issue that I'm having trouble getting past. We've had some smoking porches come before us recently in terms of people wanting to do something else and get rid of them for other reasons. And they are defining features of the home, even though this one is in the back and hidden away and used for garbage storage. Like, I get it. Not the best use of it and all of that. But it is definitely a historic feature of the home. So I guess one of my questions for you is, it looks like on the first level, you're building basically a little vestibule before entering the elevator, right?
That's correct.
Is
That's on the grade level.
on the grade level,
Yeah.
right? So if you were to demolish the porch, and is it possible that vestibule, when lowered, or that because it's at a lower grade, could that be an exterior porch space? Does it need to be an interior space for any reason, or can you enter the elevator?
They were
from
hoping to make it conditioned space. So yes.
So they were hoping to make it a conditioned space.
They wanted to be inside the building so that the elevator was, also part of the conditioned space.
Because the elevator would not be conditioned if you had one face of it and not. Okay, that's the problem. Because what I'm thinking is, if you could basically push the porch out, stick the elevator there, and make that a space, exterior porch space, you can still retain that smoking porch even if it isn't the original one, right? Trying to look for a solution here that works, but yeah, you answered the question. I just didn't like the answer, so not sure what to do with that. Okay, flip it to you guys. See what you've got.
I mean, I do it. The location is very logical. I mean, again, the struggle is going to be the historic value of the porch and how, if that is appropriate to remove. Reed, you mentioned kind of liking the roof resolution. I almost wonder our challenge is that, should this feel deliberately, it's like this is tucking it in and absorbing it into, like, it's already always been there. Is it more appropriate to maintain a flat roof and let this be not dramatic, but own it as a new thing that
Mhm.
was not part of the original, so you can maintain kind of what was there, and this almost treat this as this vertical extension of the spirit of the porch and that flat roof, and kind of relocating a porch kind of element on the backside of the building, which quite frankly, again, not sure if appropriate or not, maybe is additive to the aesthetic of that back elevation.
I had considered the flat roof at the end, trying to get that to work out. Problem with that is that there's some clearance issues with the elevator.
Okay.
Above. That you have to have clearance above the elevator as well.
So you need some breathing room
Right up
above
there.
that existing.
And then I get into the
Okay.
eave lines.
Yeah.
With that. And at that point, I was like, you might as well just go ahead and roof it.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still worth some study. I mean, I appreciate you're trying to hold that line.
yeah.
To that point, if you're trying to make it not look like it's part of it, if the top of that didn't align with that and you're accommodating for that, I don't know that that's the end of the world, because you are saying this thing is added on and is not part of this other piece. Or maybe even, I don't, what's the pitch on that? 7 to 12. I mean, it does look, it looks like it's in between trying to look like it was part of it, but it's not quite there, and obviously wasn't a part of it. So like, if it's not a flat roof, because then you've got to find a way to drain that, or scuppers and downspouts, you know, if that pitch is lessened, or maybe we're breaking that eve line so that it isn't trying to look like it was part of what was in the corner of that house all the time. I agree. The porch is unfortunate. The location makes sense. It's right next to the stair too, so that's already vertical circulation through the house. I'm going. I think both new roofs I'm struggling with a little bit. This new kind of gable porch on the backside as well. If that were hipped and a little bit more, again, I'm not trying to mimic the porch that would potentially be removed here, but it staying in that vein of you know, a hipped roof over that area, as opposed to this new gable that is, you know, the lines aren't necessarily speaking to existing lines on the house. So I think for me, the roof of both of those is a little bit of a struggle. The new brick, is that intended to match the existing brick? Are you?
So there's two different types of brick on the house. You get the front facade brick, which wraps around to the side of the house, and then once you get basically to where the porch is, it changes the type of brick. So I think my idea was to just try to match the more rear, older looking brick than the newer, smooth face brick that's on the front. Just because it is located toward the rear. You can tell the difference in the picture, but
Oh yeah,
yeah, right there in that middle one there, you can see it's
Back to the
Different
concept
color.
of owning this as its own
Yeah.
addition. Should it not be brick? Should it
Right.
be a different siding material that's complementary of? My only pause there is there's a couple different things already going on the house that it might be just adding one more that is not right. But yeah, I just trying to absorb it into the historic too much is, I think, a struggle.
I mean, I know we say that we do that for like big additions, but I mean, this isn't like a full on addition. This is why I'm like, and you know, one of the residential ones we did just approve, we did it with just the brick of the house,
Yep.
right? The other one was a different thing. So because it was just a different set of circumstances, but the one that was just approved was just the matching the brick as is. And you know, I think if you're doing a full on addition, you do want to keep the, you know, speak to that this is an addition, but this is I don't know. I think this is somehow different because you you don't want this to stand out as, yeah, we had an elevator shaft to the house, right? Like, it's not even like it's like a, you know, like a salt box edition. Like, it's not even like that, right? This is something that you do want to just have tucked in and not stand out.
Have it disappear.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's something where the vertical portion is brick, but once you go to that one story, it transitions away so that it feels more, even though it's not, even though it is enclosed, it feels more like a porch element or something else. And I think I'm struggling a lot on the side elevation of the brick once it turns to the one
Yeah,
story.
that I
underneath.
can
Yes.
totally get on board.
If we had the 2-story brick, you had maybe a hip roof there, it transitioned to, because I mean, the porch right now has, you know, painted wood, you know, rails and stuff around there. So
That I
making
totally
that feel like
yeah.
it is a slightly different element underneath there.
Because, well, and that gets back to my point about I wanted a porch back, but
Mhm.
if you made that wood or something that, and because, yeah, you're talking about this element here,
Yeah.
right? Where you're right, that doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And if you cut it to the brick there and then do something, I don't know what it is, but do something different there.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
But cut the line vertically, let,
Yeah.
let the left side be the entire,
Right, keep a brick
Height,
column.
Let
brick.
that still be the brick.
but
yeah.
the shorter version as you
So
move.
that's going to make that look even more like a shaft. Is that where you're
Yeah.
trying to get to?
Yeah.
Just make it, okay.
It sounds counterintuitive, right?
Yeah,
In
right.
terms of, but it also keeps the house looking like a house
Yeah.
and keeps the porch looking like a porch.
Okay.
Right? If you think of it, look at it that from that perspective. But yes, it also keeps the shaft looking like a shaft.
You know, with porches, there are cases of those evolving to more
Right.
enclosed versus open.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of, we need to build that argument here of how we're recognizing that as a feature of the home, how that's evolving to meet current needs of the home and in the future, how can that be done appropriately? How are we still celebrating that as a feature, but in a new way?
I like that. It is, if you make that portion that we just discussed, make it look like an enclosed porch.
Mhm.
I
Okay.
think that's exactly how you get what you're looking for.
Okay.
And to your point, I think the hip roof, I'm never a fan of the gables as it is. So trying to make that a hip roof structure, I appreciate the house has a gable on the back and on the side here, but the smoking porches as is has the hip roof, and most of the porches in the neighborhood tend to have the hip roofs.
Or at least a very shallow
Or
slope.
yeah,
Yeah.
very shallow. Trying to fit that in somehow. I don't know how you make it work here, but
Okay.
but I think that would help go a long way as well.
The part of the guidelines that's jumping out to me is the section on new construction. Basically, item 7 talks about additions to existing buildings are to be done in a style and level of detail similar to the existing structure and in harmony with it. So to me, the gable front on the porch, that's a painted wood panel, and the kind of diagonal motif does not seem to be particularly harmonious to anything on the house. So that to me, I think also supports the fact that a hip roof would be more appropriate and more consistent with the style of porch that's, I think, on the front. Is that the front? Oh, that's the adjacent residence that has a hip roof. Sorry, on the page we were just on.
And I think the
submitted
existing
elevation.
porch right now, the roof of that existing porch is also the.
Yeah.
But yeah, the existing smoking porch is a hip roof, right?
Could you talk about the split face CMU that's selected? And whether that's, in your estimation, the best sort of use of harmony between the stone foundation and what else is available here?
I think that was my attempt to kind of show a delineation from, what's existing and what's new
Mhm.
without getting it too expensive as far as having to use to match the block that's there, which I believe is hard to find anymore.
It's probably a stone block,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Have we, although maybe it doesn't Maybe it is CMU. It's tough to say exactly in some of these photos. Jacqueline, would split face CMU or some sort of manufactured CMU be consistent with this era of construction, an early 20th century porch?
Split face CMU, not so much. Rusticated CMU or concrete block, that's not uncommon. And they know they still make that. They still have like the original molds and stuff that we've seen for other applications. Now, looking at this, not certain if I think it might be stone, but you could certainly consider rusticated concrete. You see them as foundations for many homes.
Okay. I think it might be worthwhile just in your next application to be super specific about the product that you're proposing there.
Okay.
Because I think that the characterization of a CMU product can sometimes be tough for us to say yes to, just so we don't get something too industrial or conventional.
Mhm. And then this is staff. It sounds like it's already been kind of fleshed out, discussed already. I just want to make sure, as a commission, do we feel like we've exhausted the possibilities for location as far as the elevator?
I don't want it on the front. That would be sort of very intrusive. And,
Yes.
are there other areas around the building that are better? From my perspective, I would say not really. It's not visible from the street, I would assume, or at least any sort of common, passerby would really have to look pretty hard to see this element. So that to me is a positive about its location. I was actually kind of thinking it was a great location until I heard your staff report tonight and talked about the character of that porch and how, old it likely is, could be 100 years old, and still retaining a lot of its, elements. These back porches are usually pretty well abused and shoddily constructed as their additions, but this one seems like it's in really good shape. So that's my only hesitation with it. That said, I don't think there's any better spot around the house to put it.
I mean, is the very center of, I mean, I think this, with all, historic portions, I think this is a very tasteful solution. The center of the back of the house, that door that's coming out of the kitchen, was that explored at all?
This was, ultimately, we're trying to get to that grade level entry. And I think that was the impact on that with the surrounding elements was going to be harder to achieve, I think. But we can certainly explore that if that's.
I mean, that would obviously be a more extensive rework to that terrace adjacent. I don't, that will feel much more like an appendage to the home, which I'm not crazy about, but there's less things that we are disturbing from the house. Another comment I had, and this kind of feeds into that a little bit, is, not just the porch, but we're typically very interested in existing openings in the home and how those are treated. And that would be maybe a question or a challenge, is with this new addition, those existing openings that are going to get covered up, are they still maintained, filled in, but still maintained in some regard?
And I guess as I'm thinking about it too, the other way of solving this from a historic preservation standpoint would be to put the elevator fully at the home's interior and add an accessible ramp.
Yeah.
So that
we talked about that, and
that is an
I
alternative.
I did actually, investigate that further.
Okay.
There was just never a good spot where there was a shaft that's available all the way through without getting into some existing foundation work, bearing walls and stuff like that. It was going to take quite a bit of rework on the inside to accomplish that. But
yeah, certainly a ramp is less intrusive than a building addition. That said, setting myself up maybe for future comments, this is, not particularly visible. It has a very small footprint on the property, and its impact, like I said, visibility from the street is quite low. So I think if the detailing of the building addition is done and sort of made some improvements too, it's something I could support in the future.
Let me ask, because this is what we were considering in our place. Did you consider eliminating the back stairs and using that as a new shaft for the elevator?
The stairs, the actual winding stairs that are in there now. Yeah, the ones that go all the way up to the.
Are they the only
third
ones that go
floor.
to the third floor?
Yeah,
Figures.
that's
Of course
the
they
same,
do.
same system goes all the way up from the basement all the way up. So that was considered, yeah, but
Okay.
And one other thing I would request in terms of detailing on the next submission is, the guidelines are protective of, alterations to a historic structure doing long-term damage to its viability. So if you could maybe have some illustration of how the existing home's foundation wall structural elements will not be disturbed or not compromised by the addition of this shaft. That I think would be helpful for the state, making the case that this is appropriate, that, there's some consideration of zones of influence of new foundations and existing foundations and how that all is going to resolve itself. I think that would help from our perspective.
okay.
You mentioned the back center, and I'm wondering if we need to check this out at all. Like, and
To see that as a
see that as
as an option.
I don't know how deep we need to dig, but it does seem like it would work from an interior perspective, and there's things you could do on the outside to dress it up, and I feel like we would not doing our jobs fully if we didn't
have that as an option
Okay.
to look
To-
at it to some
to
extent.
check off and say,
Due
yeah,
diligence.
that's not, yes or no, that's not as
No, I agree. That's,
well done.
yeah.
It's anytime, and it's only because of the smoking, the porch there.
Yep.
I mean, if the porch wasn't there, I don't think it would be part of the discussion, but, I mean, I haven't gotten over the hump of how we justify that yet. And I think this will help justify that
Mhm.
decision.
According to the homeowner, there was an addition over that existing terrace area at one time, and it burnt down.
Mm.
So I don't know what that means as far as what's going on underneath. I mean, not that really matters too much, but
If you or staff can find anything that talks about that, that's always helpful to kind of talk about the evolution of the property.
I couldn't find any.
You can
photos
see
on that or
something in the
anything.
brick on the back of the house. There's something going
Yeah,
on.
it does seem like that.
There's some
It's a very awkward door. I mean, to have a door exit a house that way to nothing is very unusual, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's barely any landing.
Maybe there's another opportunity here that presents itself if we keep doing some digging. Maybe there is actually a better option. I don't know, but that's why we gotta look.
Okay.
I would say to the applicant's point, we do see some evidence of this brick outline. It does seem to line up with that possibility.
Above that is original. I can't get over that half round window being.
That window is driving me crazy.
I just don't understand.
Someone did not care.
Trying to see.
Or someone hated their neighbor that had to look at it.
It's an interesting location. Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments? So I think hopefully some good feedback for you. I think that alternative option, I think would be prudent to keep this moving.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll pose it to the homeowner and see what they think, but
Okay.
Mhm.
I think I'll at least propose something to them and see where it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even a next round if it's still showing that homework essentially of vetting the options, even if it's not an option that the homeowners really prefer or are even accepting of,
Mhm.
just for our due diligence of seeing that comparison.
Okay.
It's helpful.
Great.
Okay, does that give you everything you need to keep moving?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and that was our last application.
Okay. We don't have any other
That's it.
business, correct?
No new business and no old business.
Okay. Then do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.